You're watching Caucasus Now. I'm Orkhan Amashov. President Aliyev of Azerbaijan and Prime Minister Pashinyan of Armenia are set to meet at some point very soon this month in a third country. No grand breakthrough is guaranteed, nor even anticipated. There's been no official confirmation as yet, but the very fact of the emergence of this news is very important, and so are the backdrop and broader context. Let's try to understand.
In early July 2025, in the aftermath of the 12-day war between Israel and Iran, just in the wake of the 17th summit of the Economic Cooperation Organization, held in Hankendi, Karabakh, an event that brought together much of the broader region, from Iran and Turkey to Pakistan, and amidst heightened tensions between Baku and Moscow, as well as a fraught pre-election confrontation within Armenia, it is said that President Aliyev and Prime Minister Pashinyan are set to meet to discuss a draft peace deal in a third country, possibly the United Arab Emirates, sometime this month. As of now, the meeting has not been officially confirmed by either side, yet rumours circulating vigorously on the grapevine suggest that it could take place as early as this week. A grand breakthrough leading to an imminent peace is not expected. However, the very emergence of such a possibility, let alone the fact of the meeting, carries weight and warrants close attention. As of March this year, the draft text of the peace agreement was said to be ready. Yet both sides are yet to conclusively agree over the removal of extra treaty obstacles, most notably Armenia's 1990 declaration, referencing Azerbaijan's Karabakh region, and the de jure dissolution of the now de facto defunct OSCE Minsk group. The nature of the arguments surrounding these matters has not altered significantly in recent months. Yerevan does not publicly agree with Baku's view that the 1990 declaration, cited in the preamble to the Armenian constitution, constitutes a legally binding territorial claim over Azerbaijan's Karabakh region. Nonetheless, the Pashinyan government has long advocated for a new constitution that would omit such references. The broader backdrop enveloping the prospective, yet still unconfirmed meeting between the two leaders is relevant and revealing. Azerbaijani-Russian tensions have sharply escalated since the tragic Azal plane crash on 25th of December and the recent Yekaterinburg raids, which provoked a wave of diplomatic and legal responses from Baku. Armenia, meanwhile, is experiencing an intense internal confrontation between church and state, colouring its political atmosphere ahead of the elections. Russia, notably, is not a mere observer. It is widely believed to have a preferred candidate within Armenia's political constellation. The Iran crisis, too, continues to cast its shadow. All three South Caucasus republics have responded with a mixture of caution and carefully calibrated neutrality. Meanwhile, the long-dormant issue of the Zangazur Corridor has re-entered public discourse. Some inconclusive reports suggested that an American company might, in future, be entrusted with the operation of the route. No confirmation followed, and the notion has since faded. Fundamentally, Azerbaijan and Armenia remain divided. Baku demands an unobstructed overland link between mainland Azerbaijan and the Nakhchivan exclave. Yerevan, for its part, maintains its concerns over extraterritoriality. In this context, the talk of an Aliyev-Pashinyan meeting, whenever and wherever it may take place, is more than diplomatic rumour. It reflects a critical moment. The game is afoot.
Joining me now to discuss this midsummer moment in Azerbaijani-Armenian affairs and the wider region are Areg Kochinyan, President of the Research Center on Security Policy based in Yerevan, who's joining us from Warsaw, Poland today, and Zaur, Shiriyev, non-resident scholar at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, joining us from Baku, Azerbaijan. Welcome to both of you, gentlemen.
Thank you for inviting us.
Well, thank you very much indeed. Areg, my first question is going to be addressed to you. So we have explained the backdrop. So from Yekaterinburg to the internal situation in Armenia, it looks like a landscape in flux. There's so many elements ingrained in its core. When you look at that wider landscape and backdrop, do you think there is anything in it that might have catalyzed this renewed idea of leaders meeting? Or would you rather say that Azerbaijan, in peace process, has got its own logic, and it's a logic which is somewhat impervious to what may happen outside this relationship?
All the statements or all of the logic you described in your question are true at the same time, in my opinion. What do I mean? It is quite visible that Armenia-Azerbaijan normalization process had gained some level of independence. The process is led by the two countries. There are some intermediates, there are some players who try to be facilitators, but by the end of the day, the process is bilateral and it is being led by the two countries. We have discussed with you for many times that there are three simultaneous processes: the peace agreement, the limitation demarcation, and the blocking of the communications. The latter one was the last one where formally there was still a third player, and that being Russia. Now, recently in your introduction video, you described two sort of information leaks. One was being about the possible meeting of the leaders of the countries, presumably this week somewhere in the third country, and then second leak was about an idea of American participation in this process of the blocking of the communication. Both of those leaks, both of those informations, at least as long as I see it, are perceived as danger, as a threat, and as a bad news in Russia. And that's the main reason, in my opinion, we witnessed simultaneous problems between Armenia, Russia, and Azerbaijan, Russia. Those two processes, from the very first look, they have nothing to do with each other. I mean, the coup d'etat try in Yerevan and the arrest of the Azerbaijani diaspora in different cities of Russia, at the first sight, they have nothing in common. But in my opinion, both of those are reactions of the Russian Empire to the possibility of Armenia and Azerbaijan making further steps in the normalization process. Saying further steps, I don't mean that everything gonna end in the upcoming week or in the upcoming month. Of course not. It will take time. Peace comes with step by step, and peace comes with time. But I would say that Armenia and Azerbaijan are unprecedentedly close to signing a deal, a comprehensive deal, I mean. And the latest developments, the developments that were happening during the last couple of months, are further enlarging the room, the geopolitical room for this deal to take place. And Russia plays more and more nervous with this.
I see. So from your answer, what I understood, Areg, is that when you look at that backdrop, you see one clearly discernible element, the fact that simultaneously, concurrently, Azerbaijani Russian tensions have escalated, and simultaneously there is something happening inside Armenia, and there is a Russian factor in that. And Russia is sort of reacted to those two pieces of information in a very aggressive way. Effectively, is our same question to you. In your view, is there anything in the present set of circumstances that helps explain why the prospect of this meeting has emerged now?
Thank you. First of all, I think I agree that we are living in the unstable global environment, and the recent escalation involving Russia may have a reminder that the window for normalization is narrowing. And so both sides realize that the process cannot be delayed forever, and the current momentum should not be lost. So this is the one logic. But at the same time, I think, the meeting between the President Aliyev and Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan will be the first kind of the meeting without direct involvement of third parties. This is the logic actually happened in the case of the Foreign Ministers, Border Commission, and other tracks that Azerbaijan-Armenian normalization. So this is a logical continuation of Azerbaijan-Armenian the talks. But I disagree one thing, that everyone is actually talking about a breakthrough, and they understood the breakthrough as a big deal, or let's say the major announcement. But I think the real negotiation, the breakthrough is happens in the small and quiet steps, like clarifying each side position, finding small areas of agreement, and understanding where these disagreements really are. So this is the breakthrough. And also seeing the perspective, not reacting just the own perception. So that's why it might look that nothing has changed. So even after meeting of the leaders, but I think that today's nothing is changed. Tomorrow's is a bigger agreement. And basically the main issue is that I hope that there will be 2 leaders and 2 chairs, and let's hope that past grievances and mistrust doesn't take the third chair.
Thank you, Zaur. Areg, what do you understand by breakthrough? We earlier said that no grand breakthrough is expected nor even anticipated. But if breakthrough happens, what is your perception, understanding of what breakthrough might constitute?
Well, I would say that I mean pretty much what Zaur just said. I do agree that signing a major agreement is very unlikely to happen in the upcoming weeks or months. But you know, the sides are. We have come so close to very specific issues. I mean, all of the noise, all of the water is already out. The sides are very precise on their positions on all 3 tracks, be that delimitation, demarcation, where all of the paperwork is basically done, and what we're waiting for are actions on ground. On communications, where it's basically came down to very simple and very concrete questions that the sides ask to each other, and on the peace agreement, where the agreement itself is ready already. So what I was referring to is there is not that much to negotiate about, because the questions are very specific, the details are there, and even a minor decision on one single element would be a breakthrough, because so little amount of things are remaining as of now as unagreed. Those are very important elements. It's not that I'm trying to show or explain that all of the major things are agreed. Those that are still not agreed are still major elements, but they are so few in their number and they are so specific that if the sides would be agreed to come to a mutual conclusion, at least on one of them, would be already a breakthrough.
Effectively, the draft text is ready as of 13th of March 2025 this year. There are 2 remaining issues, as far as I remember, 2 extra treaty matters. One is Armenia's Declaration of Independence, 1990, and also the question regarding OSCE Minsk Group dissolution. Zaur, how do you imagine any tiny element, tiny indication of possible breakthrough regarding to one of them? Because what Areg said is that even one single element of breakthrough would suffice for the time being.
First of all, I think the breakthrough already happened, especially when it comes to the regional unblocking and connectivity. And I think that the sides are much more closer right now than they used before. So this is this breakthrough already happened in the thinking of the both sides, how they can resolve the outstanding issues. So my understanding of the breakthrough would be probably progress on the all tracks first. This is going to be the agenda, probably between the 2 leaders. Second is actually reopening the discussion about the transport and the connectivity. So as Areg said, there weren't any discussion between the sides. This track is actually sidelined. But the third, probably there will be much more the smaller confidence building measures that sides can agree between them, and then society, public will see that, okay, this is something, the small steps are happening. So, but I think the public is not going to see that breakthrough in the small things, outstanding things immediately. Indeed. But they will see probably the confidence building measures or any improvement of the Baku and Yerevan.
Well, indeed, Areg, the notion of breakthrough is something that people may disagree about. breakthrough for one analytical mind may look like a minor development to be not taken into account as a serious matter. But just to look at what may happen this month, this prospective meeting between the leaders, President Aliyev and Prime Minister Pashinyan. When they met back in Tirana, Albania, the optics were incredibly powerful. Prime Minister Pashinyan saying that, I think something along the line of, would you mind to have a chat over coffee? And President Aliyev said, I will be back in a minute or so. And they talked to each other. We don't know the content of their conversation, but still it sent a very powerful message. Many people would say that chemistry seemed to have worked very, very well indeed. I would like to specifically ask about the connectivity subject. The recent rumor circulated on the grapevine. It hasn't been confirmed as yet. Before talking about connectivity, with your permissions, I want to move back to what happened regarding the Iran, the crisis, because last episode of Caucasus Now, Boris Navasadian and Rusif Huseinov, my guest, and we discussed the question of will this crisis, and back when we were actually in the thick of it, effectively, we were discussing, will it make South Caucasus more consolidated, or will it actually provide opportunities for respective actors to sort of use this as an opportunity against each other? My first question to you, Areg, we are in the wake of the end of this conflict. Do you think South Caucasus as a region, and Armenia specifically, managed to go through this test, which was a testing time for the region?
Well, definitely. I mean, neither Armenia nor Azerbaijan have tried to use the Israeli-Iranian conflict against each other. In both societies, there were some voices from media, from expert community who were time to time trying to instrumentalize the conflict against each other. But on the official level, and even one step lower level from the official, I haven't seen any try of instrumentalization of the conflict against each other. So the sides did pass the exam pretty well. Now, I would say there is a harder and a more important exam, the exam with Russia. As I said, Russia is in my opinion, it's in a hysteria kind of, and tries to stop or slow down the process with all possible means, simultaneously trying to pressure both Armenia and Azerbaijan separately from each other. And to an extent, it also depends on both Armenia and Azerbaijan in the process not to be instrumentalized against each other by Russia. That's really, really important in my opinion. Adding a couple of words on the communication matter, I would say there are 2 to 3 questions on this matter that if the sides would come to an agreement about, we might say that everything else is more of a technical question. The first question is, are we talking about opening of one specific route, or we're talking about opening of all of the communications in South Caucasus, even step by step, even doing the Meghri route first? But are we talking about that specific route, or are we talking about larger opening of the communications in the South Caucasus? I would say this is the first question. Second question, do the sides agree that both of the sides have income, and by saying income, I mean not only financial, but political, economical, strategic, infrastructural from opening of the routes? Do the sides agree with the logic that the other side should also gain something from the process? That's second question. And then the third question, do the sides agree to find rather a compromise solution rather than using a rhetoric of a winner and conquer, or of one side dictating the other side?
I see.
If those 3 questions would find their answers in the upcoming meeting of the leaders, other than this, I would say everything else is technical and does have a solution.
Yep.
For example, not to be very, very sort of theoretical, there is this question about customs control on the Armenian border. You know, the modern technology allows a lot of flexibility in this issue. Let's say we can come to a conclusion that Azerbaijani transporters will declare electronically beforehand the goods that they are going to transport through the Armenian territory. And then on the railroad, we will have special technical equipment which will check by X-rays the content of the cargo without even stopping the train. Thus, on Armenian side, they will have their custom control. On the Azerbaijani side, they will have the reality when they're not even stopping on the border. So again, it's a question of principally agreeing on the solution of compromise, and the rest, the technical solutions, are quite possible to find. And last but not least, you mentioned the two sort of remaining disagreements between the Armenian side and Azerbaijani side, aka the Minsk Group institutions and the constitution topic. With the Minsk Group, I honestly don't understand what do people mean when they say there is a disagreement, because both of the sides are literally saying the same thing. Both of the sides are saying that the Minsk Group institutions have played their role, positive, negative, doesn't matter, that they are outdated and we should get rid of it. It's basically Armenian side suggests we can do it the same day. We can do the Minsk Group first, and then we can do the peace agreement. So it's not even opposing the Azerbaijani logic that first Minsk Group, then the peace agreement. It's basically the time framework in which all of this is going to happen. And with regards to the constitution, two things were announced on this matter in Armenia that I think are very, very important. One was this plan suggested by the Prime Minister, who was referring to the decision of the Constitutional Court that there is no problem with the Armenian constitution, suggesting following: we do sign the peace agreement, then we have talked about this. This peace agreement has to be sent to the Constitutional Court to check the constitutionality of this agreement, and then if the Constitutional Court approves it, the question is over. The question is shut. It can't be discussed in the future in Armenia because every single document can be sent only once to the Constitutional Court. And if it doesn't, that would mean that Prime Minister himself announced that he will be in charge of the process of adoption of the new constitution. Simultaneously to this, recently, in the last couple of months, we keep hearing from the government, from the Prime Minister and from his ministers that they are planning after the general elections in 2026 June, a referendum on adoption of a new constitution. With this new constitution, the Minister of Justice of Armenia made an announcement. She said that the new constitution of Armenia should be within the new realities of the geopolitical and regional atmosphere and the situation. Meaning that more or less the second issue is also either solved or on its way to be solved.
Thank you very much indeed for explaining the wider landscape, Areg. I don't think the positions maintained by the sides have changed over the past few months regarding the both issues. I think that what Armenia is saying that the dissolution, the joint application to effect the dissolution of the OSCE Minsk Group could be made, and then peace agreement could be signed on the same day, immediately afterwards. I think that's what has been the Armenian position for some considerable time. Azerbaijan believes it should be done now and then the peace agreement. So the timing is not exactly the same. Azerbaijan believes it should happen earlier than that peace agreement, and considerably earlier than the peace agreement. And regarding the Armenian constitution, I think that Armenia has been very clear that government of Aliyev-Pashinyan does not consider the 1990 Declaration of Independence as a constitutional obstacle, because you yourself articulated the self-same view that there was a decision taken, I think, in September 2024 that part of the Declaration of Independence is not part of the constitution as such. But Azerbaijan does not trust Armenia, and I think that effectively the arguments have not changed really. We have discussed this subject on a number of occasions. Azerbaijan believes that there should be a referendum in particular. Regarding the connectivity, Zaur, I want to put this question to you. Reciprocity is a principle that we discussed extensively over the past few years, but it looks like, as far as my reading of the Azerbaijani rhetoric is concerned, Azerbaijan does not believe that principle of reciprocity applies to that overland passage connecting mainland Azerbaijan with Nakhchivan exclave. and and this is effectively a result of the war and circumstances established after the war. What is your reading of that situation? Do you believe that Azerbaijan and Armenia are close to that compromise, or do you think that there are some matters which could give rise to further disputes surrounding extraterritoriality that Armenia may not accept?
Thank you. I think when I say that Azerbaijan and Armenia are much more closer on the breakthrough or breakthrough already happened, I meant especially on the connectivity, because the first is that the both sides, back in March when they agreed the full text of the peace agreement, this is a joint commitment by both sides. There will not be any third party, whether military or civilian, on their joint border. Everyone has to assume that this applies on the EU, but it assumes to Russia, it applies to Russia, it applies to any third party, and there's no natural third party. So this opens opportunity for both sides to find that might be temporary arrangements how to security is going to be managed in this particular the Azerbaijan mainland connection with the exclave, the next one. So that's why this is a big opening for the both sides. About the reciprocity, probably we don't know much more detail. There might be much more thinking how to move forward about this issue, and especially reciprocity is about the security. So Azerbaijan and Armenia has a difference, and if there will not be any third party, if they can find a formula that satisfies both sides, might be they can actually resolve this security of reciprocity on the connectivity, not only Nakhchivan, but might be Yerevan, the Gaza, and the broader unblocking of the roads between Azerbaijan and Armenia. So I believe that this removal of the third party, or actually much more understanding between the sides, is opening the much more doors for sides, even redefine the reciprocity between them.
Talking about the removal of the third party, let's just I'm trying to be very clear about it for my own sake, to understand it better and for the sake of the audience. That, I think that was referred to as the working group or commission, tripartite, established, I think, in January 2021, involving Azerbaijan, Russia, and Armenia, on the unblocking of communications, still sort of technically de jure in force. Is there any need to disband it? Is there any need to actually withdraw one's participation from that group in order to make sure that this process is purely bilateral? Zaur, first you and then Areg.
I think I don't know what mechanism actually should happen in order to make this bilateral. But I think that Azerbaijan and Armenia right now can announce that they're actually making this bilateral track with informing Russia about this. So it's not actually de jure dismantling the 2026 agreement or any 2021 January transport agreement between Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Russia. So just both sides can inform the Moscow, and they can move to bilateral track on this issue. So before, actually, the main concern, because of the lack of trust, was that who is going to move first? So Azerbaijan or Armenia, and whether if one side moves, other side can misuse this against that side. I mean, the playing with Russia, but this is actually not the case anymore. So probably in the leaders' meeting, this issue can be clarified. So in my understanding, they can, if they actually would like to resolve all outstanding issues between them, I think it should turn to the bilateral process. At the same time, actually, Areg also referred about some of the links about the other third party, Americans or the European Union, but there are many proposals coming from the EU and the United States, and not right now, even 2, 3, or 5 months ago. So, and this is just an idea, so it doesn't mean that both sides are actually waiting the EU or the United States bring them creative ideas. They are going to consider all of the ideas, and they will make their own decision. So that's why let's not take this any leaks as serious as it appears in the media.
And we are looking at them, we are examining them, we're trying to establish where they're coming from, why they're coming from there, and how people, actors, as Areg said, reacting to them. the Russia's reaction reveals about Russia's intentions. Areg, about the connectivity, you talked about earlier about the customs regime. It looks like a soft border. Effectively, Armenia does retain control and sovereignty, and Azerbaijanis are not really feeling that they are sort of traversing a foreign country. So that's a effectively soft border mechanism, a bit like the border between Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland, wherein you got the control, but the border is not harsh, it's not hard. There's no sort of infrastructure which is too visible. It reminded me of that sort of a structure. And then, of course, we mentioned about the bilateral nature of the negotiation. Effectively, in Azerbaijani-Armenian negotiation, there's one thing left which is not purely and exclusively bilateral. That's the opening of communication, and that relates to Zangazur Corridor. You mentioned earlier about constitution, about the OSCE Minsk group. I think the arguments on the Azerbaijani side remain the same. They believe that the constitution should change, there should be a referendum. But I don't want to dwell onto that because we discussed it extensively on a number of occasions. I want to reflect on Prime Minister Pashinyan's latest visit to Turkey. That has induced massive reaction in some Russian analytical circles. And there is a fear that the Russian-Armenian peace deal will lead to Turkish-Armenian normalization. That means increased Turkish presence, economic presence, in the South Caucasus, including Armenia. How comfortable Armenia itself, do you think, with the idea of more prominent Turkish presence as a result of all of those processes?
First of all, prior to answering your questions, I would like to also reflect and agree with the colleague about what is the solution of dissolving the Russian involvement in the third track of negotiations. And here I couldn't agree more that the best way to do it is a joint way of doing it. If Armenia and Azerbaijan would start working on this matter bilaterally, and at some point it doesn't even have to be the first step, it can be later in months, to inform Russia that since we have started working on bilateral format, and since we are very successful in this format, we do not see further need of the Russian involvement negotiations.
May I interject just very briefly? I remember this debate that Voyageurs, I've been told during the conferences, Voyageurs, Azerbaijan, Armenia, just bilaterally decide on something, and Russia will be forced to accept it. A bit like what happened in October 2022. It wasn't, nobody informed about Russia that Azerbaijan and Armenia would recognize each other's territorial integrity. They recognized in Prague on the 6th of October.
Yes,
exactly. And then later in Sochi, Russia was forced reluctantly to accept that reality. And what I heard from Azerbaijani analysts and some people connected with officials, that it is Armenia should act first, because back in November 2020, when those discussions were taking place about the Zangazur Corridor, which emerged as a proposal, there was a need for international security arrangement, and Armenia itself agreed to Russian control. And now Armenia wants Azerbaijan to deteriorate its relations with Russia, but Azerbaijan doesn't want to do it. Armenia should take the first step. That was the argument I heard within the analytical circus back then. I don't know whether it has changed or not. Just that was my sort of interjection for the context.
So first of all, I would say that Armenia already made the first step by sending the suggestions only to Baku back in November 2024. Armenia did not send it through the trilateral format. Armenia sent it to within the bilateral format. So Armenia already made the first step, and there was a Russian reaction for this step from Pashinyan's government, I would say. Additionally, you know that I disagree with the term you're using. The so-called Zangazur Corridor is a problematic term. That's first. And second, I also disagree with the way the story is told in Baku, that back in 2020 trilateral announcement, it was Armenia who wanted Russian participation on the corridor, but that's a question for the historians to discuss rather than for the politicians already, I would say. Now coming back to your question on whether this could be a soft border first, and then the role of the Turkey, and how in Armenia we see the role of the Turkey, and how comfortable Armenians are with increasing participation of Turkey in the region.
Thank you very much for remembering everything. Sorry. Appreciate that.
First of all, I would say that the biggest game changer in South Caucasus within the larger geopolitical context, in my opinion, is not the Armenian-Azerbaijani normalization, it's the Armenian-Turkish normalization. Because this is the event that would dramatically change the set of influence of the regional powers and of the global powers in this region, and would very much limit the Russian participation in South Caucasus. That's first. Second, how comfortable do Armenians feel about this? There is an increasing understanding that, or realization of the fact that Turkey is going to be there forever, Armenia is going to be there forever, and sooner or later we need this normalization process to happen. We need to face the fact that Turkey is a neighbor country of Armenia, and that's not going to change. Additionally, for many decades, the general strategy of Armenia was that there is a third party who, in the hour of need, would be there to defend Armenia from Turkey. But now, I would be surprised if there are people in Armenia who would believe in this logic, that Russia will be there if something would happen between Armenia and Turkey. Thus, the idea of normalization, the idea of having a more a Turkey that one can foresee future actions of, a Turkey with which Armenia talks, feels much more secure than vice versa. And last but not least, when we're talking about creation of economic ties, it's to a level an exaggeration, because Armenia and Turkey do have economic ties. Armenia and Turkey do have trade. Turkey is in top 5 importers in modern Armenia. The revenue of bilateral trade is more than, if I'm not mistaken, last year it was something like $800 million. All of that is happening through Georgia. The only difference in this matter would be that the trade will become just cheaper, and we will not enrich our partners in Georgia by doing all of this trade through their territory. That's a second. And the last on this notion of soft border, I would say that on this matter, again, the principal question is, do the sides recognize that all of the settings, all of the agreements should have bilateral interest in it and should have a bilateral income for the sides? And I'm not talking about specific reciprocity, like if we give that kind of road to Azerbaijan, Azerbaijan should give that kind of a road to Armenia. That's not the logic I'm referring to. I'm referring to a more wider geopolitical understanding of mutual interest, let's say.
That's very, very interesting indeed. Areg, thank you very much indeed. Yes, there are a number of things there, and we referred to them extensively. Zaur, one of your latest pieces, I referred to this particular piece before the interview, it's titled The Precarious Power of Azerbaijan. You acknowledge that Azerbaijan has experienced a shift in fortune over the past 5 years since the year of 2020, but you say that delayed peace could endanger the emergence of new regional order. What are the major risks for now? I mean 2025.
Thank you. I think that the risks are obviously should be clear to everyone. The one is the changing geopolitical environment in and around the world, and also the risk that outsider powers can insert themselves to the process in order to disturb the whatever agreement or the achievement happened between Azerbaijan and Armenia. And also domestic risk in Armenia, the next year parliament election. And a couple of all of these things, uncertainty makes things very unpredictable. So a delayed peace or delayed normalization actually risk, let's say, everything. This is the main, let's say, the thinking about it. Also I referred in this article about this role of the Turkey, how it can be a transformative, and also because the Turkey is the first and the strongest ally of Azerbaijan, and we should also let Turkey to play a much more important and meaningful role in the entire region. And this will be a new design of the Caucasus, which actually first element is about ownership. We will take ownership of our problems, Azerbaijan, Armenia, and it can include the Georgia in the future. So, and it's also going to minimize minimize the risk about any third party who would like to make things the worse for any of the party. So this is basically the, let's say, emergency I see. Emergency doesn't mean that, okay, they should sign immediately or in 1 month or 2 months. You remember 2 years, 3 years ago, even back to 2022, everyone talked about that, okay, at the end of the year, there will be a peace agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Signed, but no one actually questioned that whether peace agreement is ready or not. So that's why. But now we have a peace agreement is ready to be. It's finalized and it's ready to be signed. So, but what outstanding issues can be not easily but effectively can be resolved between the two sides. So, we see the last. Yeah.
Sorry, Zaur, sorry for interrupting. It's quite interesting that the landscape has changed. I remember 2022, Azerbaijani officials used to say that let's sign a peace deal. Let's, Armenia should recognize Azerbaijan's territorial integrity explicitly, not just in line with Almaty Declaration in general. There must be specific reference to Karabakh region. And Armenian side were saying that the officials were saying that we are not there yet. Everything, in my view, it's my personal view, changed in September, October 2023, because Azerbaijan seemed to have had that sense of urgency before that point. But after what happened in Karabakh in September, with the full restoration of Azerbaijan's sovereignty, my feeling is that Armenia sort of has become a country talking more about peace than Azerbaijan, with Azerbaijan explicitly referring to that Armenian constitution and declaration of independence as a key obstacle. So that sense of urgency sort of changes sides as if during that time. We're talking about Turkey, by the way. Even Anna Ohanyan, whose name I think that we mentioned earlier, I think in one of her recent articles published by the Foreign Policy, advocated for a very strong proactive role of Turkey in putting some constructive pressure on Azerbaijan that the peace deal could be signed without Azerbaijani concerns regarding Armenian constitution and OSCE Minsk group being addressed in a way Azerbaijan believes that they should be addressed. Areg, on the basis of what we just discussed, is there anything you would like to add?
We might see the events that happened during the last 2 to 3 years in two cities quite differently, in Yerevan and in Baku. But in my opinion, if on this historical phase, on this day where we are right now, it matters more to see what can be done in the future rather than what was done in the past. That's very first thing. And then the autonomy of the normalization process that was gained through the last 2 years. That all of the decisions with regards to the normalization and all of the decisions are being made within the bilateral format is something very important. And it's not only about Russia, I would say. It's to a level also about our Western partners, because at least recently, too many things change too often with our Western partners. So when it was mentioned that, there are some American ideas, there are some European ideas, I would like to stress out and to a level also agree that the decisions shouldn't be made just based on the side who suggested these ideas. The decisions should be made on the bilateral format and with the calculation of the bilateral interest that can be built out of that format. And additionally, recently, I would say I'm thinking more and more about private and public cooperation in this sphere. We're talking about the blocking of the communication. We're talking about, in essence, mega projects that both Armenia and Azerbaijan would need. Railroads, highways, energy connectivity, etc., etc. And all of this would need colossal investments. All of this will need planning, implementation, etc., etc. So with that being done, in theory, active participation of corporations, transnational corporations, investors, business administrators who very often govern these kind of projects even better than the governments do. And furthermore, if we're talking about project-specific ideas, those kind of infrastructure could be built and maintained within the scopes of international concessions. Meaning what? Meaning that, for example, the highways or the railroads that should be built could be included in some kind of a corporation with multinational participation in it. On one side, this would bring additional security guarantees both to the sites and to the investors. And on the other side, this would make all of these theoretical conversations much more practical.
Thank you, Areg. I remember last time when you and Ahmed, we were talking about Azerbaijan, in peace project, you at the very end mentioned something about the OSCE Minsk group, something taking place in November. And I said that it's a very interesting idea, Areg. Perhaps it should be the subject of our next Caucasus Now. I'm going to repeat the self-same. You always end up the program with something very interesting and novel. And I'm very, very grateful indeed to you for that. Zaur, Shiriyev, Areg, Kochinyan, grateful to both of you for very engaging discussion, which was very unique, by the way. It was very different to the conversation we had with Arusiv and Ahmed, and it has a different quality, which is always, of course, always welcome. Thank you to both of you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we have tried to connect the backdrop with what may yet unfold this month in June 2025. The link is not tenuous, it is real, although it is a bit uncertain at this stage, of course. Nothing is guaranteed, but something is undoubtedly in motion. We're most certainly living through a very consequential year, perhaps even a consequential month, perhaps even consequential days. See you very soon indeed.